Hey guys, welcome back to another Know Your Operator session. Today we're hosting Bonsfie from LowFeeValidation. Hey Bonsfie, very happy to have you with us.
Hello, happy to be here.
Just like every time we do this every session, let's start off with a quick introduction about you guys, what you do, your future plans, how it all got started. Give us the background.
The story is quite simple. So I started like around 2016, early 2016 in crypto. I discovered Ethereum and I started buying. And that time I remember I started to mine Ethereum too, and then suddenly I started reading about proof of stake. So I remember it was more or less around end 2017, and I started like, okay, this thing of mining seems to like the end of mining, and let's shut my mining operation. And then I saw that this thing continued, uh, still mining, but some proof of stake changed. So I remember Tezos came up, and I was like, oh, I have some Tezos now. What should I do with my Tezos? And I was like, oh, maybe I should find some staking operator. And I remember I contacted some people in the area, and finally, after working with some of them and being super curious about it and having some fun, I said, okay, why not try to find somebody that helps you, because I'm not very technical, to run all your staking coins and have your own machines. And that's how low-fee validation uh, started. And it was kind of, I saw that most people charge a lot. And I said, I remember that Jeff Bezos sentence that he said, your margin is my opportunity. And it was like, okay, why not offer low fees with good quality? And well, at that time, the quality was quite, I would say, basic, because it was super simple team. And from there, we've evolved a lot. Now we are running around 500 million, and things are pretty serious now.
500 million is more than pretty serious. Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah,
impressive.
it is. It is.
That's great. So, can you tell us a bit about what chains you're running and sort of what made you decide on running those specific chains?
Well, we are running several chains. We are running like, let's say 9, 10 chains, and we have a lot more in like coming. And the thing is that uh, we like to start with change in the very early days and see how the projects breathe and who's in the ecosystem. And if we love the ecosystem, we get involved in them. If we think that the value proposition is special, that they bring something really new, then we get into them and like we put all our energy. We've done that like with Keep from the very early days, in which we are an official staking provider. We did that with Mina. We were awarded grants. We did that with Solana. Let's say that things got more serious when we started with Solana in the dry runs of summer 2019. We were there from day zero.
Wow.
We did that from Moonriver too. Then we were invited to some other networks, and that's a bit the story. Always trying to provide 0% fees or low fees, like our name says.
Yeah, I actually have a lot of questions about that. We'll get there in a second. Um,
Absolutely.
it's pretty impressive that you guys were on Solana since day one. It's one of those success stories. How
Yeah,
does
it's
a
crazy.
process of yeah, crazy is an understatement. I'd like to know how the process of, I'm guessing you guys review tens, maybe even hundreds of projects before you decide which one to join, which one to run, or which one has the most important or interesting value proposition. Now, I'm wondering, how does that process look like internally? How do you guys vet a project, and what makes you decide to go, all in on this specific one?
Well, that's not an easy question, and there's also a feeling about the network, something which is a gut feeling, something which is not really tangible. And let's say that I'm mainly an investor, and so low-fee validation is a side project that is growing, and I use my investment background to analyze networks, and from there I come to conclusions.
Hmm.
So let's say Solana. Something that struck about Solana was that in the very early days, I was in Discord, and I was feeling that something was completely different. So the engineers there were fast, absolutely fast. I saw that nowhere else. They helped you like in a matter of minutes. Every time there was a problem, they were trying to find solutions, and they were super practical. Something that struck me in the very early days, I remember that I was traveling. It was October. It was October the year before, I think, and I was in Morocco in a travel, and I was like talking to some Solana guys, and they were saying maybe you need GPUs. So at that time, I said, yeah, I need GPUs. And they sent me two RTX 2080 to my place, like free from the United States. And so,
Really? Wow.
yeah, you started seeing some kind of magic in there that didn't happen in other networks. And then I was like, oh, I will go all in this network, for example. And then you see other components. You see how Solana Twitter was doing at the time. You see the token economics. You see the proposal that they were bringing, like let's say a, a classical post consensus, but with a special take in hardware that was completely new also, and that made
Hmm.
you think a lot. So that's a bit the story.
Yeah. It's so difficult to make sure. I mean, if you open the website, read the front page, a lot of these projects seem like they're offering blockchain infrastructure or something along
Yeah,
those lines that have pretty similar taglines or names, So
yeah,
to have that value proposition, that's something that distincts you from anyone else, is so hard to achieve. And I think Solana are doing it on many different forms. First and
yeah,
foremost is,
absolutely. I agree completely. And sometimes there's also this other point that is that somebody who you truly, let's say, trust recommends a network. So
yeah.
we've seen that, for example, we were super early in Moon River too. So some other project, which I can't really disclose now, was talking amazingly well about the Moonbeam team,
Mhm.
and that made us like go all in Moon River, and that paid amazingly well too, for example.
Yeah. The word of mouth is super important. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
Especially when you're trying to bring the right people in to get involved. So we see it for us, the quote unquote, the active operators, the one that engage a lot, usually bring in the most engaging users. And at least at the stage where you need to test out things or test out the technology, that's where you need it the most. So I
Yeah,
definitely see that. Yeah.
yeah, I agree
So
absolutely.
yeah, I mean, obviously, because we're Ethereum guys, we think that Ethereum invented everything and everything is the best on Ethereum. But obviously, there are other chains, other projects that do it slightly better.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that it's important. So I've missed some opportunities because also I was quite early in Ethereum, and I was like super Ethereum guy. But sometimes, yeah, you have to remember like to be super open minded, and like I don't know, for example, the Avalanche consensus is super interesting to understand
Yeah,
and to know a bit the difference in each blockchain. I think that makes you so see, for example, how Ethereum blindness made you like not go to Solana. It's like a good thing to keep in mind. It's like rub your nose on your own mistakes, and like try to be very open always, because this past may always remember us that more new networks will come.
yeah. I remember back in the day, 2016, when we just got started off,
Yeah,
every other day you would have, you still have them today, but it was more dominant, more, happened more often. Back in the day, you have the next Ethereum killer, the next Ethereum slayer, the next Ethereum. So I remember
yeah,
we had a session a few months where we would look into each one of these competitors and have a week about each one of these competitors just to try to understand what they bring in different to the table. So back in the day, you had Cardano, IOTA, those kind of players.
yeah, yeah.
Let's just say that back in the day, the competition, I mean, they were so far apart. Ethereum were years ahead of everyone else in the curve. At least that's what we thought. And over the past couple of years, different
Yeah,
strategies, different projects, different case
yeah,
studies have made this a lot more competitive. And I think, to be honest, as hard as it is to admit, I think it's
yeah.
great that the Ethereum guys have someone chasing them. They need to have this competition.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So they don't get too comfortable in their seat. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
because
that
there's been like quite a lot of time when Ethereum's been like really relaxed, in my opinion.
maybe too much. Yeah.
Yeah, could be, could be.
All right. So I'd like to ask you a few questions specifically
Yeah,
about your business model, specifically about the way low fee validation operates.
absolutely.
There are, I mean, there are two very interesting things that I saw. The first one you just mentioned a second ago, that this is sort of a side business. So I'm trying to understand, from a perspective of a standalone user or someone that stakes as an individual person, just like myself. I have ETH, Cardano, whatever it is that I'm holding,
Yeah.
and I'd like to stake it. Can you explain to me what made you go down the road of doing it on your own, building it in-house, as opposed to just choosing one of the existing providers? Because I'm sure there are plenty on every chain that you operate on.
Yeah, so it was mainly curiosity because, yeah, I'm an investor, but yeah, for example, with Solana, I started, oh, what's that of validation? What do I need to run a validator? What would it happen if I build that at home? Which component should I have? And then, yeah, for example, Solana people send me these nice cards, and I was like, okay, let's assemble a machine. How do these machines get built? And I set my first validator at home, for example, and I was having fun, having a lot of fun. So I was trying things, and then dry run was working. Solana was paying nice souls, and it was like, oh, this thing is fun. And from that time, I started building more things. So it was, and it is still a bit now, not my main operation because in low fee validation, I'm centered in more or less operations and sales and managing money, which is what I'm good at. I'm not technical, but things came like in a natural, funny way, and that was more or less the via. So it was never something that I chased, or let's say I will build a validation company. Never.
It's usually, I mean, different but slightly the same. I mean, when we started working on Ethereum staking, it was
Yeah.
initially designed to help other people manage or be able to run nodes in an easier, ETH2 nodes in an easier way, right? So
Wow. Wow.
from there all the way here, it's you have to. I mean, I don't want to call it luck, but you have to place yourself at the right crossroads to know exactly what the
Yes.
next step should be.
Yes, but the situation is that normally not many people are in this kind of situation. So you have to be there. You have to know Ethereum. You have to know how to run a node. You have to assemble a community. So it's some little steps that you may say that's not really difficult or whatever, but you need passion, you need time, you need energy. So all these things come together and you build an amazing thing.
I think passion is the number one word here. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many cases in our space. I can name hundreds where the technology for company A was better than the technology for company B, but then technology that company B was more successful. Or the first people that entered the market with DEXs, Bancor, for example,
Yeah.
they, they
Yeah. Yeah.
they
Yeah.
invented the whole topic, but you can't compare
Yeah.
between Banker and Uniswap today. So
Absolutely.
Polygon and Optimism, there's so many different examples. So I think that passion and perseverance, for sure, needs to play a huge part in the success of these chains.
Yeah. Make a lot of difference. Absolutely.
Especially Solana, I think they do an amazing job there. again.
I think so. They have a lot of challenges, but they keep solving them. So yeah, I think that they have an amazing road ahead.
Mhm. There was one sentence from your website under the mission statement that I really, really liked. You
Yeah,
wrote, and I'm quoting you guys, we offer
yeah,
0% on networks where we believe decentralization is needed. I mean, I think that's an
yeah.
amazing sentence. I might copy it and rephrase it a little bit,
Uh-huh.
but I would, I would love,
Yeah.
love for you to explain what you mean behind it. You know?
Yeah, that's mainly networks where we really are fans of. So, for example, that was Solana, and it was like being there from day zero makes a lot of difference. And people always say, okay, you are offering 0%, you are not earning from the validators. And the thing to remember is that if we've been there from the early days, we also have souls from us, and that helps fund all the operations. So of course, we will put fees one day. We are sure of that. The fees will be low, absolutely low. That's our motto. That's our name. And and we think that charging certain fees is abusive. So if you automate all your operations, you don't need to charge high fees. That's that's how we see validation. And we think that validation should be fair for everyone and everyone should gain. Absolutely, when we want to earn our piece of the cake. But we don't need to put high fees because we don't have super high costs. And we also have a good stack, in this case of Sol, and our sales takes funds everything.
So just to make sure I understand the way, so if you guys decide to go down a path where you support a project like Solana since day one, or I saw Neem, I saw Keep, a few other
Yeah,
projects,
yeah,
interesting projects. I'm guessing you guys keep the rewards or the tokens and go for the long run with those projects, because otherwise you would have sold your soul right
yeah,
away.
yeah. We normally do that. It's like I have to say maybe only in a couple of projects we've sold some tokens, but that's really strange enough. So we are normally for the super long term. It's like we also really believe in SSB and the vision that you are bringing to Ethereum. So what you are doing is something that Ethereum needs.
That's we'll get to that in a second, but that's that's great to know. Um,
Yeah,
Could you tell me a little bit about the decision? So let me back up a little bit. So some
yeah,
projects from the beginning, they charge a fixed fee. So they would go ahead and say, I charge $10, I charge 20. Some other companies, again, in our space, charge a lot more than that and guarantee a certain level of security, maybe insurance, each one with his own little, let's call it tokenomics. What stands behind the way that you guys charge your fees? And could you explain a little bit what you think about the guys that charge fixed fees? By the way, disclaimer, we were planning on charging fixed fees. So I would love to hear your
okay.
opinion.
Well, my take is that you should charge some fees if you need to maintain, if you need those fees to maintain a decent, secure operation, because you will have some costs. That's something for granted because you can't like not charge fees and get really basic infra, which isn't secure, where you don't have good engineers and where things can get messy, which I think that in some cases in the ecosystem, you have some operators that maybe it's only a guy at home with his machine and managing some amount of money, let's say some millions, and he or she could get easily hacked, and there could be quite a lot of problems. So, in my opinion, you should be really sure to charge some money in order to keep your security. If you don't need that money because you get that money from other revenue streams, then it's okay. But you should always charge. And I think that it doesn't make sense to charge very low fees if you are not offering a high quality operation because the costs can be terrible.
I mean, that's a great segue to my next question. So, in the beginning of the call, you mentioned that you guys, or you did, started off with a very rudimentary, very basic infrastructure for your
Yeah,
activity. But at the
yeah,
moment, as far as I know, and I've seen some things, and I think Dean can show it in the background, Maybe you could
Okay.
explain or talk a little bit more about the current infrastructure, what you guys are doing differently, maybe the automation part that you mentioned before.
Yeah. Yeah. So uh, we are one of the few validators uh, that runs on immutable infra. So we do not modify machines directly in any situation. And instead, we rely on software to migrate hardware for us. So yeah, we don't touch the machines.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big difference. So you, I'm not technical, but you really need a good engineering team to work like this.
So you guys work with cloud-based accounts as well, or do you do everything on your end, sort of in-house?
We do both, but the key idea is immutable infra.
So,
And then yeah, and then also there's an important thing that we use Nixos. So this operating system allows us to tailor our hardware to the blockchains we run. So this is because Nixos lets us automatically build and deploy and monitor software, and that's very important for us.
mhm,
And so that the main difference is that we've now written hundreds of Nixos packages for our validators. So we don't get the code that the projects provide us and run it directly on the machine. We do a lot more.
mhm.
So and also we use least privilege access, meaning by default engineers do not have access to anything. So this gives us security by default. And this least privilege means that you have to increasingly add more access if someone needs it.
Mhm. Got it.
Let's
Could you,
say yeah, we hire somebody and they don't have access. So we manage all this.
so you standardize it, normalize it for the specific use case. But let me ask you
Exactly.
this. So for the from the infrastructure perspective, it's very cool, by the way, the Nexus and integration and everything. I would love to know, it sounds from, again, we're addressing the non-technical people, it sounds like if you know how to run a node for one blockchain, if you know how to run a node, let's say for Solana, running a
Yes.
node we're tested for something else would be pretty much the same story. Could you explain or show or detail how it looks like on your end when you run a new, when you decide to add a new node or add the infrastructure for, let's say, SSV in this case?
Well, here I have to say that I'm not technical enough, and that all the engineers are working a lot. Mainly, every time we get a new network, specific software is written for that network.
Mhm.
Specific monitoring is written for that network, and we try to really go deep on each network.
From
Let's
the monitoring
say,
perspective, you mean?
yeah, both on the monitoring and on the setup. So everything is fully automated. Let's say we get a new engineer with us, so we have to make sure that this engineer has no access to machines, but he can work with us. We have to keep everything extremely secure,
Mhm.
so that yeah, let's say uh, like in the early days, we were like, okay, we get a Hetzner machine, for example, or we get an OVH machine, or we get whatever company machine. We install everything in there, but then whoever could come to our machine, let's say if he's from our team, and he has access to everything, and that's crazy. So everything has changed a lot. We have a lot of setups to ensure that everything is extremely secure.
Mhm. So top priority is security, and then after you establish some sort of stability, then you guys go ahead and decide on the fees and the charges for each chain that you run.
Exactly. I've shared with you some screenshots. Maybe
Yeah,
you can
Dean,
share that.
Dean is showing it in the background as we talk. I think. Are you showing? Yeah. So this the one with the monitoring. So you guys
Yeah,
do monitoring for each chain the way you guys, Dean is showing it in the background. So the way it
exactly.
looks.
Yeah. So the one you are seeing maybe it's Moonbeam metric, and that's an example of a dashboard we've created and modified for tracking in-depth moonbeam. So we are doing this also for SSV. When we get into a network, we want to really understand what's going on that network and how we can improve our monitoring. But Solana is a good example. If you look at the Solana validators, there are like more than 1,000, and we are constantly in the top positions. So we are having the best performance, and that's because we do a bit more than running the software. So we run good metrics, and we write mixed packages.
I saw that the lowest uptime that you have for any of your nodes is 99%. So
yeah,
that's very impressive.
Yeah. And then there's also another chart that I shared with you, and that's bandwidth in this case. So
Dina's going to show it in the background so they can see it as well.
So what we do is like gather network data. So what we try to do is we get the data, and then in the end, we try to optimize all the data that we get for each part of our machine. Like, let's say, how does RAM, network, active connections do? And we track everything to optimize.
How often does this optimization cycle happen?
That depends on each network. And yeah, the engineers could come and explain a lot about this, but I don't have like a defined number, but I know we are like super on top of all the networks that we run.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. It'll be very interesting to see what analytics or data you provide for the ssv network, because in all honesty, that side of tracking and displaying and transparency hasn't been built yet. So it would be very interesting to see.
Well, we can, once we have it, we will share with you. So yeah, we are like controlling.
So we will give you the opportunity to share with the rest of the community. That's awesome. Yeah. I'm sure people would love to see that. That's a good segue for the next part. So if you go onto your website, something, at least from my perspective, that is missing is Ethereum 2. So you guys are not offering Ethereum 2 for staking at the moment. Could you explain why? And could you maybe explain what the plan around it is?
Yeah, the idea is that, so as I told at the beginning of the interview, things have developed very fast. So now we are, like some days ago, we were like let's say no one. Then like in a couple of months, we were like 4 or 5. Now we are 14. And so things have changed super extremely fast. And we haven't had time to do a lot of things. So we want to offer logically Ethereum 2, and we are ETH believers. But we've had so many projects going on, and we are onboarding so many new networks that we are having a lot going on. So yeah, we will be offering ETH2 for sure, but it will take some time.
How come, again, maybe I'm biased, but it's a question that comes to mind. Why didn't you start with Ethereum, or after you're done with Solana, Ethereum or something else? What's the reason behind pushing it to the end?
Something really interesting are incentivized testnets, because we started to see we were doing very well in them. So for example, we went into the graph in the early days and we did well in there. We went to Near, and Near had Near stake wars. We are not validating Near, but we were there in the first days and we won a lot of awards. So they were like giving us a lot of Near tokens. We were there also with Keep. So every time there's a good incentivized test network, and there are many competitors, because now let's say the ecosystem has changed a lot. And when you go to an incentivized test network, there are either 400 validators, 500, 1,000. So it's very hard to get the rewards. But in the early days, let's say in the graph in summer 2020, that was amazing times, or in Mina. And getting into ETH2, in my opinion, was a hard choice. In the sense, hard choice, no, I wasn't so wise, because there weren't these high incentives and it was more known. So there was more competition. And in
Yeah.
that sense, it was like, oh, okay, let's postpone it a bit more. And it wasn't until SSV came to our radar that we thought the solution was really intelligent, and we thought, let's go with them.
So this is a question I'm asking also for myself to know, because honestly,
Yeah,
we are about to release our incentivized testings for the SSV network.
yeah,
It's going to be
yeah,
a big one.
yeah.
We're fine tuning the last bits and pieces, but from your perspective, what makes an incentivized testnet good, and what sets a great incentivized testnet apart from a good one?
Yeah, so when you go very straight, I think that people are moved with incentives. So that's the name. So what you have to do to build an amazing testnet is give good incentives to your operators. So let's say make some verticals, back hunting, running nodes, uptime, make different categories, and then also like being super clear about them. So if you monitor uptime, for example, be super clear on how you will monitor uptime. And then what we've seen in other networks too, for example, another one is Filecoin. Uh,
Mhm.
you have to be very vigilant on what huge players can do. Let's say, for example, I was evaluating Filecoin, and during the incentivized testnet, very huge miners from China went in and gamed the system. So you have to be sure to make a clear strategy to avoid certain behaviors. And so
Mhm.
these incentivize certain behaviors, incentivize others, so that people can get nice rewards. And that's the key, like to make this equilibrium between all these different like bugs, performance, uh, collaboration, sometimes writing about the network, helping others, making sure the ecosystem is thriving, all this.
Mhm. So we're definitely going down that path. We'll share more information about how it's going to look like. But
Nice.
just to pinpoint a specific something that you said. So you said good incentives for operators. What
Yeah.
would you see, or how would you rank the importance between a normal validator testing or normal end user testing and an operator running a node? Because those are two different asks. One is more difficult, one is easier to do. So from your, I forgot who did it. Uh, I think it was Cosmos who did the game of nodes. What's it called?
Game
And
of stakes, or
game of
I don't
stake.
remember. Game
Yeah,
of
one of
stakes.
those. Yeah. So, what would you think that the best or ideal proportion between payouts to the operators and payouts for normal participants, like validators? How would that look like?
Well, the thing is to get to correct incentives and not being gamed. So in this case would be like, how do I avoid people spinning thousands of validators? Uh, will I KYC every person spinning a validator, for example? Will they get to KYC mom, dad, and all the family? How can you track that? What will they bring to the network? And also, when you go to the operators, let's say, who is this operator? How are they running? Which could be the risk? Because let's say I start like trying to get in the system and I get all my family to run operators, for example, and I get their names, KYC them. How would you avoid that? And how could we be sure that, for example, all these mom and dad linked to me, for example, in this case, will not in the future write a correct operation? Let's say that now only for the incentivized testnet, I get all these people, but later they do nothing for the network. How do I avoid that, for example?
Mhm.
But on the other side, there will also be people testing, and that's important for your network too. So it should be um, so you are the ones that know more about your network, and you should understand deeply how you could be gamed.
Mhm. I can tell you that the plan is obviously there's parameters and different, let's say, criteria that you have to meet in order to be eligible to receive it. So that eliminates most of the fraudulent activity
Yeah.
to begin with. We are aware of the fact that some of the activity will be abusive, and that's okay because you need to test out how this technology can scale or stress test it under specific circumstances. So we do welcome it on the incentivized testnet phase. The question, I think the biggest question we are facing right now is whether to go down like the Kusama example, where you have a testnet or a token that keeps on existing even after the mainnet is launched. So that's sort of like an animal that or a pet that you keep on growing with a different token, with a different mechanism altogether. And that's for the long run to test out new releases and has a few use cases. Or we go for, the Cosmos example, where you have a prolonged, very lucrative incentivized testnet. People get rewards, people get hyped. Once the mainnet is launched, no need for them anymore. So this is sort of where we stand right now. I think only time will tell, but it's going to be somewhere in between those two options.
It's not easy. It's not easy because, for example, you see that in Solana, during the early days, there were a lot of validators in Tour de Sol. And what they've done now is to say, okay, you want to run in the mainnet. What you have to do is have a node in testnet. If not, we will not send you the foundation delegation in mainnet. But yeah, the incentives are a bit more poor in TDF now, for example.
Yeah.
And then the other.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, the other take maybe is that if you want hackers to hack your testnet and get the tokens, what does it happen if these tokens have value? In the sense that will that count as if they steal those tokens?
That's a great question. First of all, no hackers will ever breach it. Hopefully, but yes. So only in cases like Polkadot, where you split and have two different ecosystems, which, by the way, they're still codependent in some ways, right?
Yeah.
But you have two separate ecosystems based on two separate tokens. Similarities, yeah, sure, but different ecosystem altogether. So it is a good question. One of the mechanisms that we have in place for that is verified versus non-verified, and then token holders versus non-token holders. So we saw a few cases in the past where incentivization favors people who hold a specific token for the network or project that they're testing. So if you're holding and there's clear, there's a mechanism to do it, long story short, but if you hold a specific token, that you're entitled to a larger distribution from the total pie, let's call it that. The network also keeps or lets the participants and the operators go through a verification process. So the DAO or the participants or the other operators in the network can decide whether the operator is legit or not. If he's legit and passes the criteria, he becomes a verified one. Once he's a verified operator, again, his stake or the size of the rewards for which he's entitled for grows as well. So we're trying to combat exactly what you're saying. We'll have all the information out there, and obviously, we're looking for this kind of feedback to be able to solve that specific issues. All right, so let's move on to the next part. So I don't want to keep you up too long. We've already sort of like across the time. So really quickly, a lot of big changes are happening in Ethereum. A lot of big changes are happening in the POS space. Now, as we all know, the merge is coming, is approaching. So we're going to see the first time where miners are completely removed from the picture. What do you think is the next big thing, or how do you think this POS ecosystem is going to look like post merge? So just really open-ended question.
Yeah, I have to say that it's really hard for me to get to an answer. And what I know is that there's a lot of talent in the ecosystem and competition. So in the end, we'll see amazing solutions, but I don't know who will bring those up. So maybe SSV is a good candidate to do that. maybe someone comes. So what we've learned from the past is that incentives bring nice things. So I don't know. Let's say Solana came and did a nice job, but maybe tomorrow comes another one. And then the other part is network effects. That, as you said in the middle of the conversation, that not always the best solution gets the best outcome. So that's the other part. So let's say that somebody comes and does an amazing solution, but they don't get the marketing and the network effects, and everyone is in SSP, and you've built an amazing network, then that would like have a lot of weight too. So for me, it's really difficult to know what the future will bring.
Yeah, it's a good answer. I mean, no one knows the right answer,
Yeah,
and if they did, they would definitely wouldn't share it.
yeah. I
But
I
for
believe in the end. I believe in incentives.
yeah, so everyone does. I mean, but
Yeah,
for me, going back to Ethereum versus everyone else, I think that obviously the technology, the people, Vitalik, there are a few reasons that put Ethereum where they are. I think that the number one reason is the community, the brain power behind the project, knowing that there's a lot of people who contribute, thousands of companies with thousands of employees, very smart people leaving very good jobs and migrating to the space
absolutely,
for
absolutely. And
passion.
Ethereum is amazing, and I've never left Ethereum. So I've been pissed a lot with the fees and some things in Ethereum. But on the other hand, having had all these bad situations, I've never left Ethereum, and I truly believe in Ethereum.
Yeah. Even though we pay 50, $60 for gas fee today, but
Yeah,
regardless, yeah,
yeah. I'm kind of sure that things will get better.
I really hope so, because yesterday I made a mistake. Again, I wanted to move to layer
Oh,
two, and on the way back, I ended up paying like
yeah.
$60 just for the fees, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. Let's see. Let's see. When you start trying roll-ups, you start
yeah.
getting a bit happier, in my opinion.
I completely agree.
Yeah,
I think that what I'm seeing now that I haven't seen in the past so much is, if we were, let's say, again, I don't like bringing the ICO age back to life, but back in the day, you
yeah,
would raise money for a specific project on a specific chain, and that's gonna
yeah,
that is your whole world, right? So I'm seeing a lot of projects that do the normal day equivalent of ICO, IEO, whatever it's called
yeah,
today,
yeah, yeah,
doing it on a few. So they would get a grant from project X, and then
yeah,
take their technology and apply it for a different chain or cross chain or different wallet. So I'm seeing a lot more. So they're starting. A lot of people are. I saw again. I think it was Phantom and a lot of other companies that
yeah,
start from
yeah,
Solana.
yeah,
Build a very very good product, and then go
yeah,
and translate it for a different chain.
yeah,
Which is something
yeah.
I haven't
That
seen in the past.
yeah. There are more and more incentives to move to new networks, and these new networks like have gone with these super big programs to move whatever dApp into their blockchain. And now there are new solutions like these EVM compatible Solana Neon. There are a lot, the bridges that are working better and better. And then there's the abstraction that in the end, maybe the wallets will be king and everything is done from there, and you can't notice if you are changing or not. So you have these new bridges. You can always feel like when you play with Optimism and want to go back to Ethereum, that you have to wait some days and some things that are really uncomfy. But in my opinion, with the time, all these will get solved.
Yeah, it seems like it's getting there. I mean, I did have points in the 4 or 5 year development period where I had my doubts,
Yeah,
but it's coming all together. So it's very interesting.
it is. It really is.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so we're way, way, way past. I wanted to keep this under 30 minutes. So really, the final
Yeah.
question for you for
Okay,
today,
sure.
and this is something that we're addressing all the network participants. Obviously, right around the corner, there's the incentivized testnet. So people are going to start actively picking operators. Those operators are going to effectively determine what their reward is going to look like.
Yeah,
So the importance for the SSV users to know who stands behind the operator, what kind of people are involved in the project, how much they can count on that project, is a huge, significant part, especially since there isn't what we mentioned with the stats and the data yet. So
Yeah.
people can't see track record until they join in the test out. So the last question for today is, why choose low fee validation? Why you guys?
Well, I think that it's very easy. It's like mainly the name, low fee validation, so low fees. And then the second part is that we offer low fees, the quality of the best staking providers. So everything is automated. Our engineers don't touch the machines. Everything is programmed. So you have low fees at top quality. And in the end, I think that myself as an investor, that's what I'm targeting. So I don't want to pay high percentages for my staking rewards, but I also don't want to give my money to someone running a validator at home and putting it at 0%. So I think that you should really distinguish between 0% or 1% or 2% or low fees run by mom and dad or somebody at home with some servers or getting some hardware or getting a machine at home, and some people being serious, like having a real team of engineers running like high quality infra and knowing what they really do.
Great answer. I can also tell you that once you guys are settled in and ready to go, we also have more technical calls for the operators to let your engineers talk about the infrastructure, talk about the analytics dashboard, anything that you do. I think that the community has a lot to benefit from you guys. We're very happy to have you. Very happy to have you with us.
Yeah, we can do that. Thanks a lot, and it's a pleasure to be with you too.